today we see where Jesus took a departure, because in 22 and 23 he's basically talking to, actually 21, he starts talking to the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the people around them, and he really comes hard at the Pharisees and Sadducees, calling them fools and blind and hypocrites, and he really makes very strong language against the ruling intelligentsia of that day, the elitists that we're supposed to know, and all these people who have been downtrodden. You don't speak against these guys. These guys are the people of God. And he's speaking against them, especially harshly in 23. And he goes through like 4 or 5 different tirades of what they were. You know, that they were sepulchres filled with dead men's bones, that they were cups that were dirty on the inside but pretty on the outside. They were cleaned on the outside, you know. That they tithe little things like cumin and mint, but they didn't take care of more weightier things like justice and judgment. He really comes hard at them. And he finishes with, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, that killest the prophets and stones those that are sent unto thee, how often would I?" He's making a declaration of God there. He didn't, how often would the Lord, which is something David would have said, or Solomon. You know, it's funny that when Moses used the word we, talking about either he and Aaron or he and Aaron and God, you know, when he used the word we, he got in trouble. But here's Jesus using the word I, a personal pronoun, and he doesn't. "And I gathered the children, even as a hen gathers her chickens under her wings, but you would not." Again, a tie to Jeremiah. "But you would not." And he finishes this with, "And I say to you, you shall not see me again till you say, Blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord." After this, he went out and departed from the temple, and the disciples came to him. And he did a 411 in 24 and 25 with the disciples, giving them information about what was to come. So if you wanted to get on the inside, if you wanted the inside scoop, now we've changed gears. Remember, especially in Matthew, you have to know who the audience is to understand. And they departed, and he showed them and they showed him the buildings. And he said, "See ye not all these things? I say unto you that there shall not be one stone left or another that will not be thrown down." He's prophesying about what will happen in 70 AD. And then he went and sat on the Mount of Olives, and disciples came with him privately and said, "Tell us what things shall be, and what shall be the sign of your coming in the end of the world." He's really going long forecasting here. And this is very important information. We've heard it quite a bit as Christians, and I won't go through every piece of it. "Take heed that no man deceive you, but many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but don't be troubled, for all these must come, but the end is not come. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There'll be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these things are the beginnings." So you see these things. You have scoffers today that says, "Well, the world has always been like that." Not in the intensity that this one is talking about, that Jesus is talking about. "And many shall be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another." We see that happening a lot here in 2023 and 2024. "Many are offended, and false prophets arise," there we go, "and deceive many, and the iniquity shall abound, and the love of many shall grow cold." Iniquity goes up, the love goes down. "But he who endures to the end, the same shall be saved." Now, this is not for our salvation of our soul, to be proved you were right. Endure to the end. Don't give up. Hold on to the very last. That's what he's saying, though. You'll be proven to be right. "And the gospel shall be preached to the whole world as a witness against these nations." And he talks about the abomination of desolation that we saw in Daniel. And when you see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel, shall stand in the holy place. Now he's talking here to people that he expects to have a solid Old Testament understanding. See, that's our fault. When we don't know the Old Testament like we should, that when these things hit, we can't see it. It's like I've said before, this is the language of God, and we're into the pretty much a very deeper part. You've got to understand the syntax. You've got to understand the grammar. You've got to understand the figurativisms. You've got to understand how he speaks to hear what he's trying to say here. And this is important information. And so, Let him that readeth, let him understand. And when you're into Judea, flee into the mountains. So he hasn't given up on Israel, and he says, those on the housetops, don't come down and take anything. Neither shall he in the field return to take his clothes. Once you see the abomination of desolation happen, get out, go. And woe unto them that are with child, and that give suck in that day, and pray that it won't be in winter, neither on the Sabbath day. Now it's interesting there, why would he say, I thought no man knew what day or hour. And yet, here he's telling them, pray that it won't be on Sabbath or in winter. So I'm believing that you can control circumstances to a small degree. If you know something's going to happen, you can pray, well, Lord, let it happen in this instance, or let it happen like this. If you're going to go into a negative, well, let it happen in this sort of way. You know, so put your 2 cents into it. He always wants our 2 cents in. It isn't just his way, highway. Talk to him about it. Maybe he can adjust the dates so you aren't as disenfranchised. I know a lot of times when my car has broken down, it broke down right at my house or right at my work, right where I could get some help, or right where I was close to help. So it's a good place to break down if it's going to happen. You see how that works. And except for those days are shortened, no flesh shall be saved. Now he talks about false Christ here in 23. If any man comes to you and say, lo, here's Christ, and there shall be false Christ arise, good, and false prophets. He's doing some warning here. And show great signs. Here we are seeing, well, if we see a sign, it's got to be from God. If you see this, it's got to be God, and that's not how it's going to be. And behold, I told you before. This is stuff I've already told you guys. Therefore, someone says, goes into the desert, or go forth into secret chambers. When Jesus comes, he says, it'll be like lightning coming out of the east and shines to the west. So shall it be with the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever the carcass is, the eagles will gather together. There are places where the scavengers will gather. So be careful. Scavengers will gather. It says immediately after the tribulation. So we're dealing with now really, really late game. Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in clouds, in power and great glory. And he'll send his angels with a great sound of the trumpet, and shall gather his elect from the 4 winds. He's going to gather everyone that's his from the 4 winds, and all over heaven, everyone that belongs to him, he's going to gather together. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. This word will not pass away. But of the day and the hour knoweth no man. I got ahead of myself when I quoted that earlier, because here is where it says of the day and the hour nobody knows. So yeah, you can put your 2 cents in worth, but nobody's going to know. And there's this interesting scripture taken out of context at the end of 24. We make it about the rapture, the rapture, the rapture. We take it out of context. It's one of the many we do. We've seen this in the Old Testament. We take it out of context, we slap it against the wall with no context around it, and start teaching. Here's where it says, in the days of Noah, so shall the coming of the Son of Man. He's talking about this after. We take this as today. This is before tribulation. This is after tribulation. This is the after tribulation period. Because up here he says, when he says that, let me go back up. Immediately after the tribulation. So everything after 29 is after the tribulation, after all of this wrath and after all of this struggle. Then he's going to gather them up. And it will be like in the days of Noah, that people will be married, giving and married, until Noah entered the ark. They knew not that the flood came. 2 shall be in the field. 1 is taken, 1's left. This is not saying the taken one is rapture and the one left behind. We've had this, why aren't you ready? And songs about the rapture at this point. This is not the rapture. This is where the judgment happens. Some are taken, some are left. And there's many people have said, well, the bad people are taken, like the tares, and the good people are left. Those that have given their lives, those that have repented, those that have come into Messiah. And it gets down, and it's inference here that this gets down to the individual level. And this is just about, well, Amnon is gone, and Edom is gone, and Moab is gone, and Esau is gone, and Israel's okay. He takes it down, just like he said he knew the hairs of our head. He takes it down to where he says, It's it goes down to the individual level. He says he's going to judge everybody. And he said, and one shall be taken. They'll be in the field, one taken, one left. 2 women will be grinding, one will be taken, one will be left. Watch therefore and know, because you know not when the hour of the Lord comes. But know that if the good man of the house had known when the thief was coming, he would have watched. Therefore be ready, for such is the time you think the Son of Man cometh. He that is faithful. Who is the faithful and wise servant whom the Lord shall make ruler over his household, to make him meet in good season? See, we forget, we think this is it. We think that the way we're living is the way it is. No, there's another time coming. There's a time of the resurrection, the time of what he calls the next generation, regeneration. These are Jesus' words. So what we have here, this is not rapture at the very end. Blessed is the servant that does, that is doing what the Lord wills when he comes. Verily I say to you that he shall not make him ruler over all of his goods. So he talks about that. He says, and the Lord of the servant shall come in a day. I have a friend here. Settle in, friend. You're making it difficult. Settle in, friend. So, and it says here that, verily I say to you that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But if that evil servant has said into his heart, the Lord delays his coming, and shall begin to smite the fellow servants, and eat and drink with the drunken, and the Lord of the servant shall come in a day that he looks not, and that in an hour that he was unaware, he will be cut asunder, and appointed to petition with the hypocrite, and there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. That's what he's saying here. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. He mentions that several times. This is something that Jesus is unique of saying. Weeping and gnashing of teeth. Weeping and gnashing of teeth. Here's his idea of hell is weeping and gnashing of teeth. And he talks about fire and brimstone and all this stuff. All the descriptors we have of Christian concept of hell come from Jesus. It isn't an extrapolation of Paul or Peter or anybody else. It is mentioned by Jesus. And he talks about the kingdom of heaven here in 25. Very beautiful imagery. He talks about the 10 virgins. We remember that story. And again, I'm speaking to people who have probably been in the church a while. If you haven't, read this story. It's a beautiful story. Where these women were waiting to go and meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. 5 had extra oil because they knew it might take a while that they had prepared. 5 foolish did not prepare. They were all sleeping. And then someone gave the call that the bridegroom had come. But what happened is the 5 foolish did not have enough oil to light their lamps, and the 5 wise did. And the wise would not share with the foolish. Well, we're not going to have enough if we share with you. So go off and buy some. But by the time they bought some, it was too late. The bridegroom would come and had shut the door. And they even went and tried to get in. Lord, Lord, open up to us, they said. And he goes, verily I say to you, I know you not. Most people are not going to open the door, especially in those days with people that they did not know. Here's my friend. Say hello, friend. Hey. That's my friend. So, so he's not going to let them in. Watch therefore, that you will know neither the day nor the hour that the Son of Man comes. For the kingdom of God is like a man traveling in a far country. They called his servants and delivered unto them his goods. So here we're going into another imagery that he's giving the disciples, very 411. He talks about how this man would go and he gave the talents out. Remember the parable of the talents. He gave 5 to one man, 2 to another man, and 1 to another man. He gave them what he thought they could handle. For it says here, he gave 5 talents to every man according to his ability. Some people can't handle massive amounts of money. Some people can, so he's giving them the, people that have the resources and wherewithal, but some people can't handle that. But he gives them what they got, something that they can handle. And so when the husbandman comes back, the one that had 5 said, I went and I traded and I got 5 more. He goes, great. Well done, you good and faithful servant, who have been faithful with a few things. I'll make you ruler over a lot of things. See, a lot of times with Christianity, we think that it's going to be a free ride. We kick back after we get saved in our chairs. It says God's going to give me the entire glory. God's going to give me the entire thing. But what have you worked for after you got saved? What have you worked for to get to take the talents you have? And now I began with 5, and now here's 5 more. You know, because we see the foolish one, and I'm not talking about loss of salvation, but why aren't we out working more? Not just with the gospel and sharing, but, you know, standing in Christ, doing Bible studies, learning about this word yourself, putting in some time and effort on our Christianity that was given to us by grace, but it's up to us to cultivate it. It's called sanctification. And, you know, the word sanctification is sanctification for a purpose. So here he goes for the one that had 2. And he said, look, you had the 2. And I went out and I got 2 more. And he said, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I will make you rule over many things. Then he got to the one with the 1 talent. And he came up with an excuse. He said, well, I knew you were a hard man. I knew you were tough. So I took your money and I just hid it in the ground. He didn't do a thing with it. And the man says, you wicked and slothful servant. You're a slothful servant. You knew that I reaped what I didn't sow and that I gathered where I didn't straw. You should have at least given my money to the exchangers, and then I would at least have usury. Therefore take the talents from him and give it to the other with 10 talents. For everyone that has will be given more, and everyone that has not, it will be taken away. It gets the idea that with these lives you've given us, whether your life is a 10-talent life, a 5-talent life, or a 1-talent life, use that life for God. And he cast out the unprofitable servant. Now, I'm not talking about loss of salvation here, but in a Judaistic sense or in a regular sense. Everyone has talents. Everyone on the planet is either a 5, 2, or a 1, or somewhere in between that. And yet, what do we do with those talents? Do we take it for the glory of God, or do we sit on it? And the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, and sit on his glorious throne. And he shall gather the nations before him as he gathers the sheep and the goats. And at the end of 25, and this is the end of his discourse, he finishes his discourse with a calling of the nations, that he will take the nations and separate them as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he'll call his sheep over the one side and call the goats on another. And these are the nations. We dealt with individuals. Now we're going to deal with nations. And he says to the sheep, he says to them, come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. And I was a stranger, you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. And they're like, well, when did we do this to you, Lord? When did we do you? I don't remember seeing you. He goes, when you've done it to the least of these, my brethren, you've done it unto me. If you've shared this, not just with the world, but within the brethren, if you're caring about the brethren, if you go visit the brethren, if you give food to a brother, if you see a brother, especially a Christian without, that you jump in to help. This is how you do it for Jesus. It's not just to the world. Yes, we should minister to the world, but we should especially minister to those of the household. And that's what he says is, because insomuch you've done it the least of these, my brethren, not, and the brethren could also mean, of course, fellow Israelites. Later on, it'll mean the Gentiles. But this should go from the church to Israel to the Gentiles. That's been Jesus' focus. Then he went to those on his left hand, the goats, and he said, depart from me, you into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. Whoop. Everlasting fire, remember weeping, gnashing of teeth, everlasting fire. This goes on forever. Again, Jesus is doing the descriptors. I was hungry, and you gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger. You didn't take me in. You didn't clothe me. You didn't take care of me when I was sick. You didn't come visit me in prison. And I go, when did we not do this to you? When did we not? And he goes, and they threw him and said, well, and he said, verily I say unto you, insomuch as you did not to one of the least of these, you didn't do it unto me. And these shall go away into everlasting fire, everlasting punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. So he ends his discourse, because in 26 through 28, we deal with now he's going into his trial. Now he's going to go into the cross, that he's going to get death and resurrection, burial, resurrection. But we see he ends with, some will go, and these shall go away into everlasting punishment, and these shall go away into everlasting life. He's finished the discourse. He's drawn the final line. This is about eternal punishment or everlasting life. That's the point. Decide what you're going to be. Decide if you're going to be a sheep or decide if you're going to be a goat. And you're going to make a decision one way or another. Those that don't gather with me, scatter. So you can take all of his words that he's used through Matthew up to now, and they come up to this moment. There is either everlasting fire or there's the everlasting life. And it's up to you to decide. Thank you.